Welcome to the CRE with CBC Worldwide Podcast, Women of Coldwell Banker Commercial Edition, where we highlight real stories, smart strategies, and current trends from women leading the way in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jenna Hille, and whether you're growing your career, leading a team, or looking for ideas redefining how we work in this industry, I'm really glad you're here. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by my friend, Roxanne Ibe, entrepreneur, founder, and managing partner of Talisman Development Group, a boutique real estate development and design firm transforming underutilized commercial and historic spaces into vibrant community assets. Roxanne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hi, Jenna. That was such a nice intro. I so appreciate that.
Yes, and I'm so glad we're finally able to connect. Round 2 of trying to record, 5 years remote, and we still have technical glitches, no matter your expertise. So I appreciate your
That's
flexibility
okay.
here.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's never good without some technical glitches at the
Right,
beginning.
we need a story. But I was really excited for this conversation. Tell our listeners, tell us a little bit about your career path. What drew you to commercial real estate?
Yeah. So I wish I had a story about something that drew me to commercial real estate, but I would it's probably better characterized as falling into it kind of by accident almost. Um, I was good at engineering and math and science when I was younger and kind of got pushed toward engineering. But I really loved the design and creativity part and art, and I didn't want to lose that. So architecture emerged as a good mix of those two things. And so my bachelor's is in architecture, and I really loved that. It's a great fit for me. And out of college, I went to go work for a general contractor doing their design work and some anybody who knows that when you work at a small company like that, you start out in one role, but then you end up in project management, you end up in estimating, and then you end up doing interviews and preparing presentations because you're the one who did the last project like
You wear
that.
many hats.
Exactly. Yep. And so you kind of get into all these little roles and you really comprehensively learn how a small firm works. Um, so I was working for a small construction company out of college, and the owner of the company was wanting to get into some historic redevelopment work and wasn't really sure what to do. It was trying to get his footing, and he would take me to those projects with him and task me with, I don't really know what to do here, but I bet you could figure it out. Go ahead. So I would do my best with that, and I just really fell in love with it really quickly. Like I loved taking those historic buildings that no one could see what they could be, and I loved it just came really naturally. Like, I know what this could be. I know if this was a restaurant or this was an event venue, like, this could be so much more dynamic and interesting. And, so that was kind of my first exposure to redevelopment projects and real estate development and coordinating a big multi-million dollar effort like that. So after we were working on those projects, I was also working on third party work for that construction company. And it was a small enough company that I knew he can pay me for all that overtime work. So I approached him and I said, "Hey, I will do the work on these projects for you in exchange for an equity ownership stake in the company, in those development projects based on my sweat equity contribution."
Yeah.
And he pretty quickly agreed to that. And we've been partners ever since in those projects, and they're almost completed now. And it's something that I look back on my little 22-year-old self and I say, good job. Something
Absolutely.
I'm really
At such a young age, and to quote another one of our CBC core values, ownership mentality, that's truly ownership mentality in action, which is seeing your own value early and being willing to take that smart risk and say, okay, I know I can advocate for some way to get my worth. And again, a great reminder that so much of leadership is betting on yourself before anyone else does.
absolutely, yeah, having the bravery to kind of see the path through for yourself. Yeah, it's a great little skill that I try to, help other people that I mentor find for themselves in their own situations.
Absolutely. And you've alluded to the many hats. You've navigated multiple roles. You're designer, estimator, project manager, developer. what habits did you develop, or what habits help you context switch without losing that strategic altitude?
That's a great question. Um, Beautifully phrased too. I would say that the beauty of it is that I don't necessarily feel the switch from one to the other. I think that's what makes it work so well together is that it's pretty easy for me to always think in parallel with all of those different hats on it at once. Um, like the designer hat in particular is probably the one that I fall back on the most in my development work. It helps me so much with like how can we arrange spaces so that they're the most livable and the most vibrant, but also yield the most, like, leasable amount per square foot, because that's translating to, how much is this project making as the developer or, my construction background, that really helps me in my design work. How can we design something that is impressive and interesting and beautiful, but also costs the least amount to build, what's the best balance of those things? So I think having all those different hats at once gives me a really unique advantage, especially over other developers who came from just like a finance background
Mhm.
and don't have that design and construction background.
Absolutely. And that ability to zoom in and out, from those design details to the capital strategy is really a differentiator for leaders today because you have experience in all of those different roles. So you already know what that entails. And I think that's back to when, someone gets hired as a CEO and they go and, audit a bunch of different company positions to see how it operates, that they can better lead and serve their company and their community. And that historic aspect, I think, is just so cool as well, because that creativity part is always there for me. So I really think that's great that you don't feel a switch between roles because you need that skill in commercial real estate to be able to see across the multitude of projects that are happening at once.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so now I want to get back into the Talisman Development. When did you launch that? Why did you launch that? How did that come to be?
Yeah. Um, so the partner that I did those first projects with, I think a lot of us find this through our career. We just figure out that the people who we're working with, don't necessarily align with our values and our integrity as much as we hoped that they would or that we thought that they would. So I have since stepped away from that partnership. That was a hard decision, but it was the right one. And it just got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna be better off on my own. I know how to do this and I can do it. And it took kind of that step of bravery and to have confidence in myself to be able to do that. But yeah, that was kind of the catalyst for it. And I went out on my own at the end of 2023. So I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary and it's just already going so much better than I could have ever imagined. I was so nervous about it at first, but I'm looking back, I'm so glad that I did it. I remember that partner telling me, "You'll never be successful without me." And it's funny in a weird way, like he was trying to tear me down, but has given me that has been one of the greatest gifts of my life because it's the thing that made me go out on my own and give me the strength to do that, and now I have this company that is doing so much great work and is just something I'm so proud of. So I'm in hindsight, I'm really glad that he did that.
It's really incredible how you turn that experience into fuel, and that kind of tenacity is really what builds a legacy. So congratulations on your 2-year anniversary. I think a lot
Thank
of
you so
women.
much.
Yes, yay! Celebrate that. I think, a lot of women I've spoken to in CRE have gone can relate to that moment, and I have had experiences where their the rose-colored glasses may have come off, or, you've changed directions and suddenly you don't align on your values anymore, and that decision to pivot and go somewhere else is very scary, and it's intimidating, but when you do it and it's right, you're successful, it's all that much more powerful. So congratulations on,
Absolutely.
realizing that you can build something on your own terms, and you did.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
And I know I wanna talk a little bit more on your design and, like, your design intuition because that's, the core that you keep coming back to, as you've been speaking here, and what is really a moment where that design intuition or that background really saved you some time or really helped you as, a main hat to get through a project?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit before, but I can go into it a little bit more. Like, there are so many times where I'll walk through a building or a property, and to have that design background is to walk through that building and to see what it could be. And I think a lot of people don't have that vision for how we could improve this space to be its highest and best use. Um, like, for example, like when I walk through like an empty building or something, like you can see where the corridors go. You can see where the leasable space is going to be or how you're going to divide up the apartments. And all of those the design decisions within the building, especially from a space planning perspective, really directly correlate to ho the leasable square footage and how much is this gonna generate in revenue. And it correlates to the expenses a little bit too. So those types of things that I can see early and without a contractor or another designer with me, I think is a real asset for my work that helps inform, what the finished product will be.
Absolutely, because you're using your design expertise really as a financial tool. Because, in
Exactly.
theory, it's obviously about a lot of the ROI, but it's not always about the spatial intelligence that actually drives the ROI. So it's just another creative way of thinking about the different roles that you take on.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Being in the industry, as you have, where do you see gaps for women still, and how can we close them?
Um, yeah, I think there's definitely not a lot of us, especially in commercial real estate and, construction, where I came up. But I think the beautiful thing about being a woman in this industry is that you stand out right away. Pretty much every room that I walk into, I'm one of the few women, and if you just bring that energy and that confidence with you, I mean, you stand out and people remember you. So, even though I think there are gaps for women, I think an equally important conversation is the opportunities for women and the things that make us stand out and make us special in those settings. Um, I've also found that in construction, I'm the least intimidating person on the job site usually. So like everyone always wants to talk to me, and the journeymen and the guys who are working, like if I ask them a question, they want to help me and they want to explain it to me and they want to show me how it works because they're so proud of their work. They're happy to share it with me. So as much as young women thinking about going into this field hear this narrative of, there's not a lot of us, and there are so many opportunities and so many things that make you special though. So I try to remind young women of that too.
That is a beautiful takeaway. And you worked with the Goldie Initiative and crew and the Eisenberg Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about how they, helped shape and form how you operate today?
Yeah, so yeah, I've been lucky enough to receive lots of awards and scholarships. I'm getting my second master's now on the side, and I've had a lot of financial support from a lot of commercial real estate centric foundations like the ones that you mentioned, and also Zonta International, NAOP, uh, iReef, like all of these institutions have really supported me financially and through mentorship, which is actually probably where I'd like to go with your question. All of those scholarship programs and award programs typically come with a mentorship component, and I've just really found so much value in that. I mean, they have people that I have met that have outpoured their time and their resources to help me and guide me kind of through my journey has been just unbelievably valuable. I could never put a price on it. Open like actual deal making opportunity doors for me too. So as much as you can for your older listeners, more seasoned listeners, as much as you can mentor young women, it really makes a difference for us. And for your younger listeners, like reach out to these people, and you might be surprised how freely they'll give of their time and resources to help you.
And I believe I've said this on almost every podcast, which is a great takeaway, but, just ask. There's no harm in just asking. We're all here to help each other. There's enough room for everyone at the top. And I think that's just such a good takeaway. What does good mentorship look like in commercial real estate to you, and how can more of us offer it?
Oh, yeah, that's another great question. Um, I'm sure other people would have a better answer than I do, but I'll just speak from my own experience. I feel like the most impactful mentors to me have been people who really met me where I was at. Like they really took the time to like get under the hood and really see what I was dealing with and what I needed, what skills I was working with, that what strengths and what weaknesses I had that they kind of needed to balance out. I think it's really easy to kind of just talk to somebody at a surface level and say, "How are you doing? How's school?" Blah blah blah. But it doesn't. The ones that really impacted me were the people who really got to know my situation very in depth. So that would be the advice I would give is maybe fewer mentees, but like really get to know them and set those goals, and help keep them accountable. Maybe you talk to them like every 2 months or 3 months or something like that, and you set a goal for, "Hey, where do we wanna be by the next 3 months?" And kind of help them break down the actionable steps that they need to get there to that goal by that time. Because I think a lot more of us know where we wanna go, and a lot less of us know how to actually get there. So I think that's something that a mentor can really bring
Yes, I
that brings.
really loved how you said that. That was really beautiful. It is how you get there together, and that community building aspect is so important because it really helps everyone move forward. The check-in, just say, "Hey, every 3 months, let's check in on where you wanna be." I have a couple girlfriends that I do that with. We'll get brunch every few months and say, "Hey, you said you wanted to do this." That accountability just helps you reach your goals, and it's all meant to be supportive and encouraging. So I really loved how you phrased that. Okay, great. You benefited from mentorship in such a meaningful way, and I really love how you frame it both as skill building and confidence building. And I really appreciate that there's, to your point, a lot of women that are out there ready and willing to help each other out. I do want to shift a little bit more into like industry trends and kind of what you're seeing. Are you seeing a lot of industry shifts that professionals should have on their radar for the rest of the year or early 2026?
Yeah, I think most of us are. It's kind of a continuation of what we've been used to seeing. I mean, companies ever since COVID are downsizing. People are working from home. So a lot of companies are seeing like, how can we reduce that footprint? Can we do more with less? That type of thing. Um, which I know is hurting a lot of, bigger markets, but for a smaller developer, small to medium-sized developer like me in a smaller tertiary market, it's been really, like, kind of cool to see actually, because 'cause I'm doing a lot of those smaller development type spaces that those people are downsizing into. So I definitely see that as kind of like a reoccurring client/tenant. Um, and then just the other trend that I don't think is necessarily, specific to commercial real estate, but I have been impacted by, is I think there are so many people who are in kind of that baby boomer generation that are now retiring, who owned businesses in our industry, who are now, kind of exiting out of those businesses, but are still they're still that type of person that wants to mentor and help young people and leave a legacy for their industry. So, again, I'm glad that this question came up during the mentoring portion because I've had a lot of great mentors who fall into that category. I have a great construction mentor who came from home building that has really helped me kind of grow the construction arm of my business substantially. And hasn't really asked for much in return. So, I mean, anything that you can do, the younger listeners, to find those people who maybe had a long, illustrious career and now just kind of want to pass on some of that knowledge to the next generation. like, see what you can do to pair up and grab on tight to those people because they're such a great value add for you and your career.
Absolutely, a wealth of knowledge. And, you're alluding to, succession planning becoming very important as people transition and maybe it doesn't go through the family anymore. Maybe it goes somewhere else. And, how do you really keep that legacy alive? So that's a really interesting point that you bring up. And you also made a comment about, small city development, big market investors. If you could, broadcast one myth busting truth about small city development to big market investors, kind of what would that be?
Oh, it would be that there's no money to be made in small markets. What a myth. Yeah. Um, maybe there's not as much money to be made as in a larger city, but you can definitely make money and do deals in smaller towns. And I think the advantage of it is especially for entrepreneurs and younger people kind of trying to get their footing and assemble a team. It's so advantageous to be in a smaller market like this because there's just not a lot of competition. And commercial real estate is so unique, and real estate in general in that there's so much more opportunity than there is people to capitalize on that opportunity. I think we're so unique in that, which is so energizing and so fun. Um, so yeah, anything that you can do to capitalize on those opportunities in a smaller market, if you're kind of trying to get your footing as a young company, I think can really set you over the edge.
And for your adaptive reuse in your secondary, tertiary markets, your smaller markets like Peoria, what is your typical capital stack mix, or what incentive or credit is really the linchpin there? Are you doing a lot with TIF? Is it local grants? It's kind of
Good question. Yeah, I would say that TIF is a part of pretty much every project that we do. It's a really important tool. Some municipalities know how to use it better than others, but that's okay. Uh, I would say that a lot of the historic specific projects that I do, those projects do not happen without historic tax credits. And that's at the federal level and the state level. Like, not to go on into too much of the nuance, but that's a big program. And those types of credits typically, there's some variation, but it usually comes out to about 30% of your construction costs. So, I mean, those types of credits are what make those types of projects possible. They're just not possible without it. So I hope that those programs go on forever. I would say that there's I would say that municipalities have a long way to go in terms of local grants. There's usually like a 5,000 facade improvement grant or a $10,000,
phenomenal.
development district improvement, which are helpful and those are great, but they also usually come with, a lot of red tape and a lot of hoops to jump through. So I think those have a little bit of a ways to go, but definitely TIF and HTCs, we're so lucky that those types of programs are available.
And what do you look for in those historic buildings, or what are those early signals that kind of tell you before you put all of your, drawings and third party reports together? Kind of what are you looking for?
Oh, I could talk about this for a long time, honestly, but I'll try to condense it down. I would say the first things that I look at are the things that you can't change. And those would be the structure of the building, like how good a shape is it in? Is your rebar exposed and your concrete is spalling, or you have roof issues and things like that. Um, you want to get a building that's in structurally good shape because you're going to have to put a lot of money into fixing that, and you're not really going to see that money back. Like, nobody gets excited that the structure is nice, like no one sees it. But it is something you have to have. So that's the first thing I look for. Second thing would be like the shape of the building. If you're looking at residential use or some type of mixed use with like a commercial ground floor and apartments above, which is what I typically do, you want a building that's shaped well for apartments in that it's not too deep. So usually about 60 feet is, about 25 to 30 feet for the depth of an apartment on each side of one double loaded 5-foot corridor. And that's pretty ideal for apartments. Once you can imagine, as it starts getting wider than that, the apartments get really deep and you don't have a lot of windows per the amount of square footage in the apartment, and they kind of end up being kind of like almost like a row house or something like that, which is not what you want. You want it to feel natural. So a building that's about 60 to 70 feet wide is usually ideal. After shape, then of course the location. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a location that is doing really well now or is established, but it needs to be kind of like adjacent to an area that's up and coming, so that within the next couple of years, it's natural to see that the development might move that way. You don't want it to be like out there where nobody is. So those would be my three things that I would look for at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think, a location, location, location is something that is always said, but I think you are bringing up another great point where it's contributing, the historic is contributing to rewriting the economic story of a neighborhood in a sort of way, is that you're still focusing on how it's impacting and how it looks in the community and how it's integrating in a way that's natural so that there's that economic return there, as well.
Yes.
And there's so many, it's, back to your comment on the smaller markets too. You're speaking to so many things about the creativity happening outside a lot of major metros, and leaders like you are proving that innovation in commercial real estate, it really doesn't have to be defined by, skyline scale. We're seeing a lot of mixed use vitality across a lot of secondary markets right now, to your point earlier.
And that's where a lot of those historic buildings are too, is they're a lot of those historic buildings in those bigger metros are already completed and redeveloped. So the opportunities kind of lie in these secondary and tertiary markets, especially in the Midwest.
Absolutely. I can tell that you have such a passion for this, and I love that, and I would love to talk to you about design all day long, but I would love to transition to our lightning round before we wrap things up here
Oh, sure.
today. First question in our lightning round, who's a woman in business or leadership that you admire right now?
Oh my gosh, Barbara Corcoran, is always gonna be my default answer for that. I love how she integrates fun into her business, and it's so central to her, and I have a lot of, synergies with her story, her kind of origin story. So, Barbara, if you're listening, hit me up, girl.
Yes. Our CBC quarterly value. What CBC quarterly value is speaking to you the most right now out of win together, do right, ownership mentality, and big hearted?
Oh, I could talk about all of those. I think your one currently is big-hearted, right? So I'll talk about that one. Um, I think I think there's no project that I do that's not, you know, that is lacking in heart, especially with how many local projects I do. These are people that you go to church with and are, their businesses around the corner. So it's all about those relationships. It's all about helping them meet their goals and helping make our community better. So that can only be done with heart.
Absolutely. And you really can hear it in your passion and what you talk about things and the historic and community impact. Big hearted is right along the lines of really impacting and helping build your community. And I've already called you out for ownership mentality as well. Not that you won't include all of our values at some point, but I think that was just a beautiful answer. What is the most underrated leadership trait?
Ooh, underrated. That's interesting. I would say sensitivity.
Hmm.
Um, I think some of my male counterparts could benefit from learning a little bit of sensitivity. I think there's just something about having a positive, effective presence with people, coming in with a mindset of discovery and, how can I understand this person? How can I help them meet their goals? And you really can't do that if like the ego is like going crazy. You really have to kind of come down and be sensitive and listen to them and get on their level. And I find that that helps me build rapport with people really quickly, and it helps build a level of trust really fast, that ultimately I think really benefits our projects. So I would say, yeah, being sensitive to people, very
That's
under.
a great response. I always like to say curiosity and that creativity, and I think emotional intelligence is such a differentiator in commercial real estate because again, it's how you build this trust and the long term partnerships. And to your point, leads to more deals. So that's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, such a people business.
Absolutely. One thing you hope to see more of in commercial real estate in the next 5 years.
Um, Obviously women. Um, and I think a lot of the historic uh developers are aging out and are retiring. So I would love to see more people go into historic preservation. It's such a niche field, but there's such a need for it. And I hope that people will consider that. I think there's definitely some buildings that cannot be saved and, unfortunately need to go to that wrecking ball. But yeah, the ones that can be saved, we can't build them like that anymore. So it's really an interesting beautiful piece of our culture and our past, and I hope that we can preserve some of those buildings.
And I am positive that you're inspiring some people to look into this right now as they listen to this podcast. So that's a great answer. More out of the box thinking for really how to approach these builds, especially with as we have all of these tariffs and restrictions on supply chain issues. I think the time to be creative is now. What is one tool or tech you can't live without at work?
Mm, um, Probably my design software. I just go back to it all the time. Like we talked about before, it just informs so many of my decisions. Um, and it really people can't always see it the way that you see it. So if I'm able to put it into my design software and render it in a way that they can see it, I mean, that just sells people on the idea like nothing else. So it's been a really valuable tool. So definitely that.
Absolutely. What is giving you hope or energy in the industry right now?
Um, I mean, so many things. There's so many opportunities. I kind of talked about it earlier, but I just love that. Um, I think I'm just one of those people who just sees opportunity everywhere. And again, like, we're just in such a unique field where I'll give an example. Like, if you're a doctor, you have to have sick people in order to do your job. Like, that's what it's for. But in real estate, like, you don't necessarily have to have a client. You can see a building and say, "This could be better. This could be more. Let me buy that and renovate it and rent it out." So you can kind of like you become like your own self-sustaining engine, and I love that. There's just there's something so energizing about being able to kinda control your own destiny in that way, especially for a CRE business owner like me, so
I really
I love
appreciate that analogy. And yeah, and I think that's a trait that you called out earlier in women as well is, seeing something that needs to be done and just doing it, filling that gap and saying,
Yes,
I see that, I have the vision, I believe in myself enough to go through with that vision, and I know it will have a good impact in the community. What a great answer. This has been really
abs
fantastic, Roxanne. I've really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much for the time today. Where can people connect with you, learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, Roxanne Ibe or my, company, Talisman Development Group, we're on there too. So, would love to connect with any of your listeners who are listening.
Perfect, absolutely. And again, congratulations on your anniversary for the development group. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Women of Coldwell Banker Commercial. We hope you found today's conversation inspiring and insightful. I would like to again thank my guest, Roxanne, for her time. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your network and sign up for our newsletter. If you're part of the CBC community, make sure you're nominating a woman champion who embodies our CBC value. We'd love to share their story. Until next time, keep leading the way.